Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today's topic is going to be about debt in America. Debt is deeply woven into the fabric of American life. From credit cards and student loans to mortgages and auto financing, we all need it. We all take it on, unfortunately, from the day you're born, and it becomes a way of life here in America. And that's the sad part about it. Um, to be able to get a house, to buy a house, you need a mortgage. To be able to get a mortgage, you need to take on debt. And to take on debt, you already have to have debt, which is like credit cards, I'm talking about specifically. And you have to pay your credit cards monthly in order to have a good credit score to be able to get a mortgage, to be able to get a solid mortgage in the range of whatever you're looking for, right? And that's something that society teaches young people today, that they need credit cards as soon as they hit 18 or whatever age it may be, to be able to uh, buy a car or finance a car. You want to get an apartment, you need to have a good credit score. To be able to do all of those things, you need to be able to have a good credit score and have a credit card from a young age, essentially. um, and like I said, from the day you're born, you're essentially born into that debt that we're all in. And it's a terrible thing. I wish that it wasn't the way it is, but that's the way life is here in America. I think there's a big lack of financial education here in America, and a lot of people aren't taught how to spend money, how to save money, more importantly, and how to borrow money, in chunks that you can actually manage and afford. I think that these schools really need to emphasize and teach financial literacy, because I know that I wasn't taught anything financially in high school. I had to learn it all on my own, and through my own mistakes and some advice from my parents here and there, but mainly it was all on my own. And parents are not the main reason, but they could be a big reason why children from a young age get credit cards, because their parents incentivize them. They tell them like, hey, get this credit card. They say don't spend too much, spend within your means, and pay off your monthly credit card payments on time, and you should be okay. But you know, at the end of the day, the financial literacy still isn't there. You still have to learn it all on your own, or through other people. I recently read an article about student loans, and the student loan debt is something around $1.7 trillion, which is insane. And most adults start their life off in the red. And I think this affects around 43 million borrowers throughout the entire United States, and an average balance around $30,000 to $37,000 per person per student. How are you going to pay that off out of college? It's going to take you years. How are you going to start a family, if you have aspirations to start a family after you graduate, in the near future after graduation? How do you plan on buying a car with all that debt? That student loan debt is higher than the total credit card debt in the whole country. Can you believe that? That's like, that's just tragic to hear that, even when I'm saying it here myself. Um, it's just insane. I also had student loan debt as well, but thank God I paid it off as soon as I could. And I don't have any debt right now. But once we build this house, my wife and I, once it gets finished, we're gonna have that debt. But you know, it's an investment in my opinion. It's a good investment, a house, because we want to start a family as well. And um, yeah, but just that student loan debt is horrible. It breaks my heart for all young people that are out there in colleges. It seems kind of like a trap, that student loan stuff, but I get it. You want to graduate, you want to get a job. I understand all those things, and more power to you. You want to get a good job, you want to start your life essentially, like I said. And um, if that's your goal, you do it. But just know and just be careful about the debt you will take on, whichever major you take or whatever it may be, right? So just be wary of that. About 70% of the US GDP is based on consumer spending. And oh boy, has America built a strong consumer driven economy. Listen, They say that buying more equals living better. Society really tries to push that propaganda on people, and they really want people to buy more cars. They want people to buy more gadgets, clothing, you name it, whatever it may be. And they want people to come off as if they have a lot of money, when in reality they're just using their credit cards and spending way above their means to be able to have all of those things. When in reality, they probably can't even afford those things. They're just trying to show off and um, act like they're all like cool and all those things, but in reality, like that's not the case. Um, and it's sad because society pushes this onto people, like I said, which that mentality needs to change, because if it doesn't change, people are gonna just keep going into debt, and the national debt is gonna get higher and higher and higher. And obviously, we don't want that. But apparently, America is really good at spending and just getting themselves into debt, that it's just a vicious cycle that seems to be hard to get out of. And we really need to teach this new generation and younger generations going forward that you know the real the real freedom is to not have any debt. The real freedom is to uh, live below your means and you know, spend what you can and be able to afford what you can, right? I hope that makes sense, because this really needs to be pushed onto young people, in my opinion. Um, yeah, it's it's crucial. I think that this message gets out there to a lot of people to really dig deeper into financial literacy. There are the psychological factors that I wanted to touch on when it comes to debt. The first one being instant gratification, which I know a lot of people love. And this one is where debt allows people to enjoy having products and services without the pain of waiting, right? Which is essentially what debt is for. You can buy whatever you want right away and you just pay back later, as long as you don't overspend on that credit card. And then the second aspect would be uh, people want to appear as they look successful through their debt. And again, they're spending way over their means, and they're getting themselves into a lot of garbage, essentially, right? And you don't want to do that. You want to live below your means, and you just got to be smart with your money. You got to borrow mindfully, spend mindfully, and there are ways to go around it. You just have to really dig deeper and research and teach yourself how to become more disciplined with debt, or to not even take on debt if that's possible. But I know that a lot of people do take on that debt, unfortunately, but that's just the way it is here, like I mentioned previously. But I hope you guys enjoy this video. I hope it brought value to you. And if you did enjoy the video, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new. It would really help me out a lot. So I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. See ya.